Now it's my extreme pleasure to bring up our speaker for this morning. And I was going to introduce him with espousing the balance he shows in life, but I didn't know if that was quite true. You know, he's a remarkable person. He sat where you sat one day many years ago, and he's come out, he's graduated, he's an extremely successful chiropractor, but he's more than that. He's successful in every aspect of his life. And is he balanced? If you're competing in national jiu-jitsu competitions and just having an extreme impact in his community, I had to think about it for a little bit, but really, he is balanced. He gives 100% in every aspect of his life. When you meet his family, you realize he gives 100% to his family when he's with his family. He certainly gives 100% to his patients when he's with his patients or his practice. And if you're on the mat with him for jiu-jitsu, be prepared because you're going to get 100% of that too. His bio, I would encourage you to read this. He's our Parker Seminars Chiropractor of the Year. Please join me in welcoming Tony DeRamus. Tony?
Good morning. So I want to thank you, Dean Johnson, Dr. Morgan. You invited me to come do this today, and it's been an honor. It's been a fantastic year, and a lot of the credit does go to Parker for making me feel very, very special. So it's funny because I'm watching these awards being given out of valedictorian and salutatorian, and I can't help but thinking that the only award that I received in school was best looking in class. My dad was real proud of that one. Yeah. But if you'd seen my class, he'd realize it wasn't that big of a deal. Just kidding, in case you're watching this video. But, you know, it is funny because when I got up this morning, I started thinking, I said, you know, it was 20 years ago, I sat in the same seats that you guys are sitting in. It really does feel like it was yesterday. And even backstage, putting on the regalia and just coming back with these old memories of, you know, drinking tequila before you walk the stage and just, you know, you guys don't lie about that. You know you did it. We all do it, don't we? But anyways, when I was asked to do the commencement speech, I got a little bit nervous because if you've ever watched YouTube, if you've seen these amazing speeches, you know, Steve Jobs at Stanford, and if you've never heard the story of a third grade dropout, I encourage you to watch that. But that's tough competition. And so as I started to write this speech, I realized something about myself. And I realized that I'm just not that deep of a person. In fact, I'm very, very pragmatic in most everything that I do. I think that success is very practical steps in order to get to that level where you need to be. In fact, when I came up with the title of my speech, I decided it's going to be 5 pragmatic statements so that you don't do something stupid, okay? And trust me, this is all from experience. So number 1 is you need to get really, really good at talking to yourself. And talking to yourself is not crazy. Talking to yourself is a necessity. Now, we heard the story of a leader a few seconds ago. You guys are about to become leaders. And I will tell you, and I call this an occupation because it requires a certain set of job skills. But you guys are about to become leaders. And it can sometimes be a very lonely place. You know, your job is to inspire those people around you, to motivate them, to pick them up when they're having a bad day. But who does this for you, right? Who does this for you? When you're laying in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and you can't sleep because you have some major stress taking place in your life, and it's you lying there in the darkness, who does this for you? Now, who's going to tell you to get up in the morning and face this challenge head on? Right? Who's going to tell you not to quit when you feel like that's the only option that you have in life? And it's you. It's always going to be you. It's you. You have to become your own cheerleader. You have to become your own counselor. You have to get really good at talking to yourself. But when you do, you have to say the right things. You have to talk to yourself the right way, which leads into the second one is do not buy into your own BS. And if we weren't at church today, I'd tell you exactly what that stands for. Don't buy into your own BS. And when we look at this, there are basically 2 types of people who buy into their own BS. We have one type who thinks too lowly of themselves, and we have another type who thinks too highly of themselves. Now, for those of you who think too lowly, we call that low self-esteem. And I will tell you that it is probably one of the worst mental states, mental attitudes that you can ever have. Nathaniel Branden, who is considered the father of the self-esteem movement, he said that self-esteem, whether it is high or low, tends to be the generator of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Let me repeat that. Self-esteem, whether it is high or low, tends to be the generator of a self-fulfilling prophecy. In other words, your thoughts really do become your reality, and it's a dangerous place to be. If someone or something is contributing, and I use contributing because instead of causing, because you have a choice to be there, but if someone or something is lowering your self-esteem or contributing to that, you have to find a way to get out of there. Self-esteem is the killer of all dreams and desires. It almost guarantees failure in life. And I'm going to use a dirty 10-letter word called mediocrity. Right? Don't worry about counting your head because I've already counted it like 5 times. But we can't afford mediocrity in our profession. We need greatness. We need greatness. So if you're in that position, find a way to get out of it. And those of you in the audience that are graduating, I'm speaking to you as well. But what about those people who think too highly of themselves? And I don't want you pointing fingers because you know people in your class already that suffer with this disease. And you guys haven't even proven yourself yet, right? Nobody pointed finger, that's good. You've got to be careful of this problem because you guys are doctors and you're entering into a profession now that you have power and authority over people. You actually get to tell people what to do and most of them actually listen. So as a doctor and a business owner and a leader, you have a lot of power and you have to respect that power. Abraham Lincoln said that almost all people can stand adversity, but if you really want to test a person's character, you give them power. It's a really wonderful thing to possess, but be careful with it. When you achieve some level of success, and most of you guys will achieve some level of success, you cannot allow this to go to your head. You have to stay humble. You have to stay focused on the very thing that brought you there in the first place. You know, when you start making your world, about you and the role that only you play in it, you forgot about the thing that brought you there, and that's the people. And when I say people, I'm not referring to your patients. Your patients, as you will learn, will come second. Your people are the same people that get up in the morning, they go to work with you, they're on time, they're early, they go to work when they're sick. They share the same visions and goals that you do. They make what you do happen. You cannot forget about them. My pastor is an amazing man, and he always gives me these wonderful quotes to use, and I have one that I keep at the top of my goal sheet, and I read it all the time. He said that people are God's greatest treasure. If you make it about the people, you'll never go wrong, and it always centers me. Don't forget about them. The day that you actually learn that you're there to serve them instead of them serving you, then and only then you'll understand what leadership is about. So number 3, be careful of the people who you associate with. And your mothers and fathers have been telling you guys this all your life, and I think you've gotten past the drugs and the gangs, so we're good with that. But now we're adults. It's time to move on. Now it's about success. And we know that success breeds success, right? Success leaves clues. Be careful of the people who you choose to associate with. I want to give you an example because I love to read, absolutely love to read. And there's an old saying that readers are leaders, and I say, no, they're not. It depends on what they're reading. But certainly, for sure, all leaders are readers. And we know what they're reading because there's a big difference between 50 Shades of Grey and Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Right? But there was a time when I wasn't a reader. Just didn't read. And guess what? I hung out with people who didn't do what? Didn't read. But then as I began to read, lo and behold, I started hanging out with people who actually read books. But I continued to read. And I continued year after year and book after book and continued to apply these things in business and in my life. And guess what? I started hanging out with people who actually write the books, including myself. So be careful who you choose to associate with. But let's get a little more specific about this because now you're entering the healthcare world. And although there are a lot of really fantastic and great people in the healthcare world, and for you straight chiropractors, even in the medical side, some fantastic people who really genuinely care about their patients. But there are also some people out here that understand the business side of healthcare, and they choose to take advantage of it financially. You've got to be very careful of these people. You have to be very careful of their fancy contracts and their talks of compliance and ethical behavior. It means nothing to them. In fact, they're there for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to fill their pockets. And when that well dries up, they're gone. Be careful. Be careful of who you choose to associate with. in this profession. You're about to take a chiropractic oath to become a doctor of chiropractic. Do not ever, ever let the money persuade you to defy that oath. Do not make the headlines for all the wrong reasons. We do not need that in this profession. Number 4, and this is something that when I wrote this speech, I said, I'm not going to give the standard, steps to success, such as hard work and discipline, which obviously those are necessities. You have to have these. But this is one area that I couldn't leave out. And you'll hear about this in every success book, every personal development book, every book on leadership, and this thing called integrity. Integrity. Now, people that know me know I absolutely love this profession. Love it. Millions and millions of lives have been changed at the hands of a chiropractor. It's an awesome profession. I'm sure that if you guys don't have it now, you'll get it soon enough once you get into practice. But I'm going to ask you just one thing, because it's that important to me that you understand this part. I'm going to ask you a favor. Please always, always respect, protect, and then represent this profession in the right way. Respect, protect, and represent the profession in the right way. Someone once told Warren Buffett, he said, there's 3 things that you look for when you're hiring someone great, when you're hiring great people. First, integrity. Number 2, intelligence. And number 3, energy. And he said, if you don't have the first one, if you don't have integrity, then the other 2, energy and intelligence, will destroy you. They will kill you. Integrity builds trust, and trust builds influence. We heard that a few minutes ago, influence. If you plan on being a leader and you have no influence, that means you have 0 followers. It's always, whatever you guys do, you have to represent this profession with the absolute utmost integrity. This is going quick, so I'm down to my 5th and final pragmatic statement. This is something that's going to be rooted in death and the dying process. Something that a group of inspiring doctors needs to hear on their day of graduation. And I don't mean to be negative, but this is a story that's personal to me. If you want to ever truly, truly test a person's character, and if you truly want to test their strength, watch them as they're forced to face death head on. I had the, I guess you'd say fortunate but unfortunate experience of presenting the eulogy at my mother's funeral 6 years ago. The most difficult thing that I've ever written, and the most difficult thing that I've ever given. But the theme of the eulogy was a story about never giving in and never giving up. So on September the 7th, 2010, my mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And as you doctors know, or should know, that's probably one of the, or if not the most aggressive cancer known. And the vast majority of people are dead within 3 months of the diagnosis. But my mother wasn't average, and she decided she was going to hang out for about 18 months. And then ironically enough, she decided to leave this world on St. Patrick's Day, one of the biggest drinking days of the year. She didn't drink, but I think it was her way of telling us that we need to celebrate on the anniversary of her death every year instead of making it a day of remorse. I will tell you that the 18 months was needed. It was definitely needed, because my mother and I, we didn't have the best relationship. It was a tough relationship after my parents divorced when I was in 8th grade. And even though much of it had been repaired by the birth of my first son, I can't tell you that I respected her as a mother should be respected. It was until I had a chance to watch her when she was forced to face death head on. I had the opportunity to watch this incredible, incredible woman, the strength and resilience that she went through during that time. There are 2 lines of the Army's warrior ethos, and the warrior ethos, if you're not familiar with this, is kind of a code of ethics for a soldier. And one of those lines says, "I will never accept defeat." And the other is, "I will never quit." And she was a warrior. I think I need that tequila right now. You know, she would never, ever, ever give in, and she would never give up. And honestly, I can't tell you what she thought behind closed doors. I don't know what her emotions were whenever she was there alone in her room. But I can tell you that she never, ever allowed her kids to see any moment, anything at all, that she was not going to make this, that she was not going to beat this cancer. And until the day that she went into a coma, her last day, she never, ever let us see that. And that was extremely powerful. I'll never forget, 2 days before she passed, I was visiting with her on her couch, and she was telling me this story about one of my sisters, and then she let out this laugh, and it wasn't your typical throat laugh. It was that deep down belly laugh that you hear. You know, that when you don't know the story, but it wants to make you laugh anyways. And I'm sitting there watching this person whose days were obviously numbered, 2, in fact, just absolute skin and bones, and I'm looking at her going, oh, she found a way to laugh. And one of the most challenging times that any one of us will ever go through, she found a way to laugh. And so with you guys, you know, when you start dealing with your difficult times, your challenging times, and God, I hope you do. If you don't understand what I mean by that, you will later on. I want you to remember that story. I want you to remember the story of never giving in and never giving up, never accepting defeat, never quitting. And I want you to remember to always try to find that laugh, that deep belly laugh. Look in the face of adversity and laugh at it and say, I am not going to lose. You got to remember that. It will make you great. It promise you your life will change for the better. So that was my fifth and final pragmatic statement of the day, and I really do hope that I was able to encourage you versus discourage you. I do think that as you go through life, you'll understand that there's a lot of truth in what I just told you. But I don't have much other to say than you guys go out there and kick some ass. You know, you have earned it. For us on the stage, we deserve it because we busted our butts for you. Right? You need to make a difference in this profession. This profession needs you. It desperately needs you to make a difference. So all I have left to say, guys, is congratulations. You've actually made it. Thank you so much.